Did a faulty Russian missile just save us from the start of World War III? In a series of leaked documents detailing war plans and other information regarding the Ukraine war from the Pentagon, the New York Times and other media outlets are running stories of how the Russians came close to shooting down a British spy plane last autumn. The story is unbelievable, and the people involved very, very lucky. Keep watching to find out how a faulty missile almost certainly saved the world from a major escalation, and how incompetence could be the trigger to set off the next phase in the fragile balance of NATO versus Russia conflict. According to U.S. defense officials and a recently leaked classified U.S. intelligence report, a Russian fighter jet launched a missile at a manned British surveillance aircraft flying over the Black Sea in September, but the munition failed. The incident was much more serious than first thought and might have been considered an act of war. Two U.S. defense officials claimed that the Russian pilot believed he had permission to fire because he misunderstood what a radar operator on the ground was telling him. The pilot fired, having locked on to the British plane, but the missile did not properly launch, the New York Times article says. After the Russian fighter jet released a missile in the vicinity of the British aircraft, Britain's Defense Secretary Ben Wallace described the near miss in a briefing to Parliament members as potentially dangerous in October. However, one of the stolen documents claimed that the incident on September 29th was a near shoot-down. Over the Black Sea last month, a Russian warplane collided with a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone, damaging its propeller, causing it to crash into international waters. The Russian and American militaries collided for the first time since the start of the conflict in Ukraine. Since Russia's illegitimate annexation of Crimea in 2014, there has been a dance between the American and other NATO surveillance planes and Russian fighter jets over the Black Sea. As Ukraine increasingly relies on intelligence gathered by the West to fend off the Russian invasion that started last year, tensions have only risen. The seriousness of the encounter between the British plane, a four-engine aircraft known as an RC-135 Rivet joint, and two Russian Su-27 fighter jets in September was confirmed by two U.S. defense officials who had first-hand knowledge of the close call, according to social media outlets. The British aircraft can intercept radio traffic and is frequently flown by a crew of about 30 people. Off the coast of Russian-occupied Crimea, the British Rivet joint was flying in international airspace. The Russian aircraft's pilots, according to the officials, were not in visual range of the British patrol, but had missiles that could hit it. A British defense official responded to a request for comment regarding the New York Times reporting and the stolen document by issuing the following statement. A significant portion of the content of these reports is untrue, manipulated, or both. We would also strongly advise them to take the time to question the source and purpose of such leaks. We strongly warn against anyone taking the veracity of these claims at face value. Mr. Wallace informed lawmakers in October that he voiced his concerns about the incident to the Russian military, including Sergei K. Shoigu, the country's Minister of Defense. According to a Reuters report at the time, Mr. Wallace said that he did not believe the incident was a deliberate escalation by the Russians and that the Kremlin had indicated there had been a technical malfunction. According to Mr. Wallace, following the incident, surveillance flights were initially put on hold, but were later resumed with fighter aircraft escorts. At least one Typhoon fighter jet is now flying alongside British Rivet joints as they patrol the Black Sea. NATO surveillance flights are currently flying farther away from Crimea than is permitted by international law due to the high level of tension and the common occurrence of miscommunication in combat situations. The U.S. military is currently observing a wider limit of approximately 46 miles, which is referred to in one of the leaked documents as a SecDef-directed standoff, rather than the 12 miles off the coast that counts as international airspace. The classified documents also mention several air-to-air incidents that have taken place since the nearly successful shoot-down on September 29th that involved Russian aircraft, NATO planes, and drones. British, French, and American aircraft responded to 6 different incidents between October 1st and February 22nd, in which Russian aircraft approached their patrols at ranges from 6 nautical miles to just 100 feet. The September incident has unsettling parallels to a Cold War incident in which Soviet fighter jets scrambled to intercept what they believed to be an enemy aircraft, which turned out to be Korean Airlines Flight 007, a Boeing 747 passenger plane. Accidentally entering Soviet airspace, the airliner was allowed to open fire after a Soviet pilot provided a sketchy description of it to a ground radar station. 2 air-to-air missiles struck the aircraft, killing all 269 people inside. As we have explored in our previous videos in the series, Russia is plagued by a command and control problem where pilots with little experience rely on an outdated system of control and rely on strict guidance from ground control centers or airborne Russian AWACS. When the pilots have little flexibility and potentially little experience, simple communication errors can become fatal. We don't know the circumstances of this incident, nor what weapons were involved, but we could imagine a Russian Adder or AA-12 semi-guided version being involved. The AA-12 Adder is a versatile medium-range air-to-air missile that comes in both an active and semi-active variant, where the active version is a fire-and-forget missile with its own radar, and the semi-active relies on guidance from the launching fighter jet. The United States Air Force and the Royal Air Force employs the RC-135 Rivet joint as a reconnaissance aircraft for surveillance and intelligence gathering operations. It has cutting-edge electronic systems that enable it to remotely intercept and examine electronic signals, such as communication and radar signals. The RC-135 Rivet joint typically flies at high altitudes during its operations in the Black Sea region and uses its sophisticated sensors to gather data on Russian military activities, including the movements of ships and aircraft. The aircraft can also identify and snoop on radar and communication signals, giving NATO crucial intelligence. The Russian military frequently intercepts the aircraft and objects to its presence in the area, which has caused tension between NATO and Russia over the RC-135 Rivet joint's operations in the Black Sea, the Baltics, and the High North. What do you think about the potential for a larger conflict between Russia and NATO following this near miss? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to stay updated on the world in war.